Okay. I hereby announce pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act that adequate notice of this meeting has been transmitted on July 24th, 2024 by the Board Administrative Officer to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, the Township Clerk, and has been posted in the meeting room and in the entrance hall in Town Hall, all pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act. Roll call, Courtney, please.
Ms. Samardin? Ms. Samardin is absent. Mr. Ackerson? Mr. Ackerson is absent. Mr. Emma?
Here.
Mr. Fagan? Here. Mr. King? Here. Ms. LaMountain? Ms. LaMountain is absent. Mr. Mann?
Here.
Ms. Pelosis? Here. Mr. Silberman?
Here.
Ms. Polavina? Ms. Polavina is absent. Mr. Bell? Mr. Bell is absent.
Okay. We could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance now, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence to honor our military, police, and first responders. Thank you. Okay, item number 1, PB 2024-C, Washington Phillips LLC, 38 Line Road, Block 28, Lot 22, R40B Zone, preliminary and final major subdivision with associated bulk variances. Applicant seeks a preliminary and final major subdivision to subdivide the existing lot into 3 residential lots, 1 flag lot containing 15.73 acres, containing the existing single-family dwelling. The 2 additional lots of 2.53 and 2.64 acres will have frontage on Line Road and will be developed in the future with single-family dwellings. This application will not be heard today and carried without the necessity to renotice to the reorganization meeting on January 7th, 2025 for scheduling purposes.
In case anybody's here, there'll be an announcement at the reorg as to when the next substantive hearing is for that application.
Okay. Item number 2, review for redevelopment plan for Block 13, Lot 15-23 Main Street. Review of the redevelopment plan prepared by Kyle and McManus Associates for the area known as Block 13, Lot 15 and 23 Main Street pursuant to local redevelopment and housing law at NJSA 40A 12A-7. At this time,
So, Mr. Chair, if I can just step in for a sec. So this has been read once at the town council meeting. The town council, special counsel is here, Zach Levy, to give us a quick introduction of what we're seeing tonight and what our role is. And then we have the township planner, special planner is on, Kendra. She's on the telephone. So we just have to kind of listen quietly to make sure we can hear her. But she's on the phone to present her redevelopment plan proposal and answer any questions that the board or will open up to the public may have.
Thank you. So I'm Zachary Levy from Pashman, Steinwalder, Hayden.
Kendra, can you hear everything?
There's a switch underneath that you can turn it off.
I can hear clearly you,
There.
Mr. Chair.
Is that better?
It's difficult to hear the attorney.
Let's try to do this way.
Okay. So, sorry about the microphone. So my firm is Special Counsel on Affordable Housing. I work with Andy Bayer, who couldn't be here tonight, and we're working with the township on the Vonage headquarters redevelopment. As the board knows, that the Township Committee introduced Ordinance 2024-22 under the Local Redevelopment and Housing Law. The Township Committee has referred this matter to the Planning Board, seeking a report containing any recommendations about any inconsistencies with the master plan and recommendations concerning those inconsistencies and any other matters that the board deems appropriate. And the committee will take any of those recommendations under advisement. Kendra Lely, the committee special planner, is, as we know, here by phone and to present the plan and to answer any questions the board may have about the plan or related issues. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Lely.
Okay, Kendra,
Yes.
the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate Mr. Chair and the planning board members for allowing me to participate by phone. I had a pre-scheduled meeting out of town, and this was not on my radar, so I do appreciate the flexibility. What I'm going to do tonight is briefly go through the redevelopment plan that's been referred to the planning board. As your council had indicated. Your job is consistency review, indicate any issues that you see that would be inconsistent with your master plan. I did provide a brief memo that I believe Courtney had sent out. It's dated December 14th. I'm not going to necessarily read that into the record, but this is for your use in making a determination of consistency. These are specific land use plan, conservation plan, economic plan element, goals and objectives that I believe that you can find are consistent with this redevelopment plan, or a better way to say it, the redevelopment plan is consistent with these goals and objectives. Just for your edification, these goals and objectives are actually listed as well in the redevelopment plan. It's one of the requirements of the redevelopment and housing law that we provide consistency review and analysis to your master plan. So with that, I'll briefly go through this and then open the floor to any questions that you may have. The redevelopment plan was prepared by myself in my office, Kyle McManus Associates. It is dated in November of 2024. This is for Block 13, Lot 15. It's 23 Main Street, which has approximately 87 acres. As you all know, it's an existing office complex that has a wastewater treatment plant, package treatment plant that provides service to that, particularly to this property. It has existing parking, an existing loop road. It is in the OL2 business zone currently. So that gives a little bit of background as to overall what the lot is and what the size is. Basically, the redevelopment and housing law is a two-part process. And so what you will notice in the beginning piece of the redevelopment plan is that you, as a planning board, reviewed an area in need of redevelopment study that Ms. Jen Beam had written back in July of 2024. The Township Planning Board conducted a hearing on July 30th, 2024, and made a recommendation to the Township Committee that the area be deemed an area in need of redevelopment, and that was done by resolution with the Township Committee in August of 2024. That's the first piece of the redevelopment planning process, is finding an area, finding a parcel that it is in need of redevelopment. The second piece of the redevelopment process is what you all are doing and looking at tonight, is actually creating or drafting a redevelopment plan, which is essentially a zoning ordinance. You probably have dealt with this in the past, where you have ordinances that are referred to you, and they're generally land use ordinances. While this is a land use ordinance, it falls under the redevelopment the redevelopment and housing law. And so you still have to review it for consistency. So you are in the second part of the process. This will be the zoning ordinance that will be in effect, if adopted, for this particular piece of property. So that's a little bit of the history. As far as the outline of the plan, you'll notice in the first page or so what is in the contents of the redevelopment plan. It's a bit more than just the zoning ordinance. It goes through the objectives of the plan, the goals and objectives, the applicability of the land use, of the redevelopment plan to your overall land use ordinance, and we'll talk about that in a second. It provides definitions and land uses and all your normal bulk standards that you would normally see with a zoning ordinance. It also provides general provisions, which really kind of starts to talk about the next steps, the process that an applicant would go through to apply for site plan approval and receive the same. And then finally, you will notice that at the end of the document is the relationship to the master plan and other plans, including the county and the state plan. So that's a bit of the outline that we're going to kind of just talk, I guess, really look to the highlights of that outline. So the first thing I want to mention to you is that as it relates to the goals and objectives for this particular plan, this is a redevelopment plan that will allow for the creation of a new senior living community. And it offers, or it permits extensive network of active and passive open space, some of which will be publicly available to the community. It is, as you all know, the adaptive reuse of an existing large building that was an office building. And it also proposes or allows for the addition of new buildings and structures that will support that adaptive reuse of the existing building. Some of the highlighted objectives and goals that went through that we put together as we were putting this plan together that were high on our mind was obviously activate this underutilized headquarters that's been underutilized for quite some time, allow for a diverse housing stock of senior residential living opportunities, economic improvement, as well as recreational opportunities. The thought process was that in the midst of creating the reuse of the building as well as new buildings, the preservation and conservation of open space, environmental resources, providing for recreation opportunities for the community were key. And then as well as if you've noticed in the exhibit to the plan that there is a land that will be set aside for emergency services facility, which is about approximately 5 acres. That's just a quick overview of the goals and objectives as it relates to this particular plan. In addition to that, as I mentioned, this is a zoning ordinance. So the ordinance, as you see tonight, are the standards as it relates to this particular piece of property. If for whatever reason there are certain standards that are silent, meaning buffer requirements, specific landscaping requirements, types of trees, sizes of trees, types of lighting, that type of thing, the standards of your existing land development ordinance will be applicable to any development that occurs on this project. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. In addition to that, a redevelopment plan is a little bit different from a zoning ordinance. You, as a planning board, may grant exceptions and waivers when an applicant would come to you for site plan approval. However, if there were any changes in the proposed uses, the applicant cannot go to the zoning board. If it's a D variance and the uses are different from what is permitted in this redevelopment plan, the redevelopment plan must be revised. So I just wanted to make everybody aware it's a little bit different from a typical zoning ordinance. As it relates to the specifics of the plan, the permitted uses that you will notice include assisted living, senior living units, which are for sale as well as rental, and then support uses such as restaurant and dining facilities, retail convenience stores, general education, healthcare and wellness uses, medical office, and as I indicated, the emergency services building. As was indicated in the beginning, that I had mentioned that there are proposed permitted uses that would be open to the public as well, as that actually will be fleshed out a bit more when the township committee would move forward with a redevelopment agreement, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the anticipation of having biking and walking trails as well as other recreational opportunities potentially open to the public or open to the public is certainly part of the permitted uses within this redevelopment area. Moving on to the area and bulk requirements, I'm not going to go through all of these. Be happy certainly to answer any questions you may have. I just wanted to make one note to you on page 9. It may lead to page 10 of your, depending on how it was printed, but page 9 on maximum lot coverage. we noticed that we needed to clarify this, and so I wanted to make sure that the planning board was aware. Maximum lot coverage, I believe I gave you track change copy of this particular table. That has been changed to, instead of individual lot coverages for each individual use, the overall lot coverage will not exceed 15% of the overall lot for all the primary structures or principal structures. So I wanted to make sure you all were aware of that slight change, that if you find it consistent with a master plan and any other additional recommendations that you make, that would be sent back to the Township Committee with that, in my opinion, which is a clarification. The other significant piece that I wanted to bring to your attention was the buffer. There is a minimum buffer of 200 feet from all public roads, and that 200-foot buffer does not allow for any building to occur other than the existing loop road. So whatever existing on the property is allowed to be in the 200-foot buffer area. However, anything that would be built new would have to maintain a 200-foot buffer from the public road. With that, the other piece that I wanted to bring your attention to as it relates to the details of the plan was the affordable housing requirements. This is a senior development. Part of the senior development is the need for a set aside of affordable housing. There will be 169 for sale units, both townhouses and what I would call flats within the reef of the existing building. Of the 169, 34 for sale affordable housing units will be provided and required. There will be 40 senior rental units in a standalone building. There will be 6 affordable housing units that are associated with that building. And then there will be 90 assisted living beds, of which 60 will be non-memory care units, and there will be 6 beds that will be Medicare beds, which is a 10% set aside. So there will be a total of 46 affordable housing units that will go towards your 4th round obligation, which begins in July of 2025. So that talks to the affordable housing requirements as part of this plan. The requirements for affordable housing require a 30-year deed restriction for sale units and a 40-year deed restriction for rental units. I think the last thing that I really wanted to talk about was the next steps as it relates to the redevelopment planning process. You will go through the consistency review. If there are additional recommendations, you will also provide those recommendations back to the Township Committee. The Township Committee will hold a public hearing on the ordinance, on the redevelopment plan for public comment at their next meeting. And I apologize, I don't recall what that is. Maybe we can figure that out and announce that. But essentially, once the redevelopment plan is adopted, the next step would be naming a redeveloper for the property and then entering into a redevelopment agreement where there will be, I would say, a lot more a lot more detail about the overall development, what the town's responsible for, what the redeveloper is responsible for, and that is required to have also a public hearing of that redevelopment agreement. Once that is completed, it would be a situation where the redeveloper that's named would create a site plan for the property. They have to submit that to the Township Committee. The Township Committee looks at it to make sure that it's consistent with the redevelopment plan before then they send it to you as the planning board, which would then you all would go through the normal requirements that you look at for a site plan. And so there are many steps into this process, many opportunities for public comment as well as review, as well as obviously a full site plan that has all of the technical requirements that you would have with any other site plan. So I think with that, I don't want to take up too much more time. I'd be happy to answer any questions and clarify anything that might be confusing.
Thank you so much for that. At this time, anyone from the board have any questions for? You got something, Wes? Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, Wes. Just if you're gonna say something, just state your name so she knows who's speaking. If you're okay with that.
Hi, this is Wes Fagan, board member.
Can you hear that, Kendra?
Barely.
Okay, let me try to speak up. There's two references on page 9 and in the color condominium plan. So let me get this together. Page 9. 8, 9. Regarding 15% maximum coverage for principal structures. And then on page 7, you have permitted principal uses. So I need to clarify permitted principal uses versus principal structures. Really, my question refers to all of the accessory uses that are permitted, where you talk about tennis courts, pickleball courts, and so on. Is that considered part of coverage? Is the parking lots, any impervious coverage, that all that go into maximum coverage allowed?
It does not. The maximum principal structures are just the buildings. It does not include any of the impervious surfaces that are not structures.
So parking lots are not considered coverage?
Correct, as it relates to this particular requirement of 15%.
That's interesting. Applied impervious coverage, okay. You said that you specifically mentioned the, I'm going to call it the ambulance fire structures. So in talking about where something is silent on setbacks or uses and so on, you mentioned 200-foot setback. So are those rules applied to the portion that's deeded to the township?
No, only to the proposed senior living facility.
So are there any requirements associated with the blue portion? When I say
There are none
requirements,
as far as it
rules.
relates to the redevelopment plan currently. No.
So you're separating the blue portion, and that's totally non-restricted, correct?
Correct.
On the condominium plan, you show in the sewerage plant area something called the retention basin. Can you just, would you describe that? Is that something that you would do, or the engineer would do, or the attorney would do?
As far as what that is, you
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
My understanding, well, I would probably defer to the township engineer on that, but it is part of the wastewater management treatment plan.
And that is in the, there's a 300-foot stream buffer there. I'm not sure how that applies to setbacks and so on. When does that get discussed?
Kendra? Wait, hold on. You there? Hold on a second.
Redial.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can.
I believe the question was, Wes, the
The thing described as a retention basin is within 300 feet and contained within the stream buffer. Are there any exceptions for that Because I'm not aware that structures are sort of allowed in that 300-foot buffer.
Yeah, my understanding is if it's, I mean, this is a DEP regulation, so if it's an existing structure and there's a 300-foot buffer, there would be certainly waivers from existing structures having to meet a 300-foot buffer. However, again, I would defer to the township engineer, who has certainly better knowledge than I do on the existing nature of that wastewater treatment plant.
It's not my last question, but it's the last question referenced on page 7. Specifically, accessory uses H and K. Again, talking about the retention basin. That basin is not specified in either H or K. So H refers to stormwater management, and that's not what this is. And K refers to the treatment plant and the pumping facility, and that's not what this is.
When you say that's not what this is, what are you referring to?
I'm saying that the retention basin is not part of the treatment plant per se, and the pumping facilities.
But again, I want to defer to the township engineer. Maybe he can clarify what the retention basin is.
Is that, yeah, Bob?
Mr. Chair, looking at the condominium plan, it looks conceptual, without having actual survey data and measurements, et cetera. It's tough to say whether that retention basin is associated with the stormwater management system on the property, or if it's associated with the sanitary sewer package plan. Mr. Fagan, you mentioned it's within 300 feet. I don't see any dimensions, so unless you measured it yourself out in the field, I can't attest to that. But I think a lot of that will be vetted out during any kind of a site plan that would be prepared for this application, and could potentially be incorporated with further clarity as it moves forward through this process and with any kind of redevelopment agreement.
I appreciate that. I would like to talk more about that. I am familiar with the site. You're right, there are no dimensions given, so I don't know if it's in where the 300-foot falls, but I will tell you, it's part of the sewage facility. It's not part of the stormwater management. So moving on to the site plan and page 6. Page 6. I'm on page 6 now. Where in the middle of that page, it talks about outpatient surgery center with procedures not requiring an overnight stay. And then it says these facilities can include sleep centers. So how do you have a sleep center where you don't sleep?
I'm just getting to that page. Hold on 1 minute. Yeah, I think the purpose of that was really to exclude hospitals, but allow for more specific items like a sleep center that you would stay overnight.
So you agree that a sleep center would require overnight stay?
Typically, as far as I know, what a sleep center does, yeah.
So your testimony is that that's sleep centers with an overnight stay is permitted?
That would be my interpretation of that, yes. But again, the medical office definition, while voluminous, is, in my opinion, really meant to specifically exclude a hospital type of use.
Okay, now we're on to the site plan. Under healthcare affordable, you've got it broken down to memory care, 60 beds, and skilled nursing, 30 beds with a double asterisk. Double asterisk indicates that skilled nursing does not meet affordable housing requirements. So that means no credit is given for skilled nursing beds, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So what I don't understand on the affordable housing aspect is when you take this site as a whole, this site itself, people living there 24 hours a day, every day, you are then required to provide low-income housing as a result of your development, right?
Of a future development, if somebody chooses to build any of the permitted uses, there is a required set aside of affordable housing, correct?
Okay. Let's say they choose to build this specific site plan exactly as it's laid out. Does this in and of itself meet the minimum requirements for affordable housing, or does it not?
It does meet it, yes.
So this meets the entire, as it's written in 2024, low-income housing associated with this site plan. Is that correct?
When you say it meets it, what it meets is the required set aside for affordable, for sale units and rental units and assisted living beds.
Okay, that's fair. And then page 18D, like David. Let me know when you got to 18. Hello.
Good.
Hello.
Yeah,
I'm there.
did you ask something?
Go ahead.
I didn't hear you.
No,
ask.
I'm waiting for her to get to the page. I thought
Oh.
she was.
I'm sorry. I didn't understand your. Yeah, I'm there. I'm ready.
So D, it says affordable housing obligation arises as a result of this development shall be the responsibility of the redeveloper. In the event that units are constructed off-site, rezoning of properties may be required, subject to the approval of the Township Committee. So, as it stands now, and if this was built as the site plan shows, there would be no additional off-site, affordable housing that would arise as a result of this site plan. Is that right?
That's correct. There is an option, however, that through a redeveloper's agreement between the township and the redeveloper, that they may be able to provide off-site housing if they so choose. In lieu of providing it on-site.
Page 7.
I'm there.
Okay, so here I want to discuss that what I consider the fact to be that memory care and dementia is an ADA protected class. So that's an American Disabilities Act, and that memory care and dementia care is a protected class for ADA. In the same class as that is alcohol addiction and drug rehabilitation. So my contention would be that they would also be permitted principal uses in this area. Without debating that, I just want to make the public aware of that I consider that to be substitutable. So you can substitute memory care, dementia care for drug rehabilitation and alcohol addiction. The reason I bring...
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I would disagree that that's not interchangeable as it relates to ADA, which is a federal guideline. This is a zoning ordinance that has local zoning control, police power. And in local land use control, land use law, if a particular use is not specifically permitted, it is prohibited. So in my opinion, when we define assisted living and allow for assisted living, that's the only thing permitted unless you make a change to this redevelopment plan that would allow what you're talking about.
I hear you. I respect your opinion. I'll offer this. At number 6 Allard Road in Berkeley Township, it was formerly an assisted living center. The zoning board denied the new facility basis of it treating people with addiction. They were considered legally disabled under federal law. Quantum, who was the plaintiff, and its lawyers made the case that it was discrimination. The township said it would have certainly lost had it gone to court. They didn't even bring it to court because they knew they would lose. And add insult to injury, when they settled it, they had to pay out damages to Quantum. So that is a case law at...
Yeah, and listen, I'm not an attorney, but I guess the distinguishing factor here is this is a redevelopment plan under the redevelopment and housing law, which requires if there is a different use that it actually has to, you can't go and ask for a D variance or a change of use. You actually have to change the redevelopment plan, as I had mentioned in the beginning. And I think the other thing that it should be clear is that, again, there is a very detailed and concise redevelopment agreement that will be had between the township and the future redeveloper that will specifically spell out what can and can't happen here, almost bolstering, several fold what's in the redevelopment plan.
Okay, with that in mind then.
Wes, just let me chime in. So that was an article you were reading. I mean, it's not case law. Just to correct yourself, just if it ever went to court, maybe that would be the outcome, but we don't know the outcome. So
That's
don't
fair.
use the term, we shouldn't use the term case law.
That's fair.
Yeah, but maybe a probable outcome is a better way to say it.
Point
Well,
taken.
I would like to say that I don't know New Jersey law. I know New York State law, that sometimes when there is what they call human rights issues, people claim that they don't have accessibility. It's very or people settle a lot because the damages, if you go to court, are treble damages, and you got to pay lawyers fees. So a lot of those human rights violations in New York State tend to settle because it doesn't make it case law. It just means something that it's just not worth fighting sometimes. So.
Actually, I wanted to make a distinction here, and that was that in this site plan, you separate memory care from skilled nursing. So if I'm stating that memory care is an ADA protected, skilled nursing is not, and now you're lumping in page 7A, you're lumping together assisted living units, memory care, and skilled nursing all together into 90 beds.
I'd like to ask you one question, just for my own knowledge. Regarding the ADA, because I do know the ADA very well. What's the concern with the ADA, about the way it's constructed, or just the use of because everything's got to be built compliant with the ADA, regardless of, what it's being used for. That's
No, it's not accessibility at all. No.
Okay, that's what
It's
I'm
the
asking.
primary use. So dementia care
right.
is, in my mind, equivalent to drug rehabilitation is equivalent to alcohol rehabilitation.
Okay, because ADA is accessibility. So it may be considered a disability under federal law. I'm just saying when you say ADA, it's more about building code and ANSI regulations for construction. So that's why it was confusing me a little bit. So
Good.
okay.
Okay. All right,
Mr. Chair, just wanted to clarify that last question as it relates to there's a difference between the site plan and the breakout of assisted living and memory care and skilled nursing versus the permitted uses. And the reason for that is the site plan is really dealing with just the affordable housing requirements, and that's why they're broken out into the two, because the affordable housing requirements are only applicable to the assisted living beds. And so that's really the main reason that there's a difference between the site plan and then the permitted uses.
Okay. Scott, does anybody else have any questions here? I'm gonna talk about wastewater treatment. So,
Well,
I don't want to monopolize this conversation, even though it seems that way.
I mean, okay. But a lot of that stuff will be sort of vetted out once it moves forward, no?
I have 2 pages of comment, if that's all right.
Yeah. Oh, Ron, go ahead, Ron.
Kendra, my name's Ron Emma, planning board member. So on your cover letter dated December 14th, we're here tonight for a master plan consistency review. The first bullet point that you reference regarding the 2020 master plan re-examination, let me just read it real quick. Provide for the protection and proper management of Homedale's natural resources. The proposed redevelopment of the subject parcel maintains protection of wetlands and wetland buffers, thereby ensuring this goal is furthered. My question to you is, how does a 299 unit redevelopment adhere to those master plan goals, in your opinion?
Well, I think first you have a reuse of existing buildings. So you have not only the building being reused, but the property is being reused. And if you notice in the concept plan or site plan, most of all of the new development, except for the assisted living facility, is housed within the loop road, or what I would consider to be existing, disturbed areas. So it's in my opinion, what you're dealing with is an infill development, and not necessarily a sprawl that would affect wetlands and wetland buffers, kind of contained within an existing disturbed or previously disturbed property.
Fair enough. That leads me to my next question about the assisted living facility. You may or may not be aware of, because you're not the planner on it, but there is a development before this board directly across Main Street, south of this property, that is in review right now. And one of the contingencies that we've gone back to that developer was for a 500-foot buffer from Main Street. The assisted living facility, Unit 4 on the site plan, only has that 200-foot buffer that you refer to. So my question is, why would the property across the street need I agree, it does need a 500-foot buffer. Why wouldn't we insist on a 500-foot buffer for that one outbuilding where that would sit on the softball field where the softball field currently sits? Why wouldn't we require a 500-foot buffer on that building?
So I think it's totally within
Approximately
the
500 foot.
I think it's in the purview of the planning board to recommend, if you all agree to a further buffer, if that's something that makes sense. I do want to mention that there is language in the redevelopment plan that any site plan that would come before the township committee and then come to you has to be substantially consistent with this site plan that you have in front of you, and it is appended to the redevelopment plan. So if, for instance, Unit 4 decides that they want to move beyond this, let's say, area that they're currently shown significantly or substantially, the township committee can find that it's not consistent with the redevelopment plan, and therefore they would have to go back to the drawing board. So I think you can be assured that there's some language in there that protects that idea, because right now it's I would imagine that you're probably in and around at least 400 feet from Main Street with the location of this building.
No. I was referring
Again,
from the buffer from Homedale Road, not Main Street, because it has to be on both sides, right?
I'm sorry, from Homedale. I'm sorry.
I was using Main Street as the example of the one across the street.
Yeah, right. I apologize. I messed that up. But yeah, so I think you can have assurance that if something changes substantially, and in my opinion, a relocation of a building would be a substantial change. However, if you wanted to make that recommendation to the governing body, the planning board has the purview certainly to do that.
I actually would like to make that recommendation, Marty. I don't know, how do I do that? Okay, so I have a couple other questions. Again, staying with Unit 4, you mentioned there was 49 affordable units in the whole property. How many of those 49 are actually in Unit 4?
6 would be within the assisted living facility, 6 beds.
So, again, getting back to the location of that building, it seems to me, I mean, it seems pretty obvious that the sickest, the oldest, and the poorest would be housed in what looks like to me a satellite building that's outside the ring road. So I would, if it's not time for recommendations, I'll make it later, but I would say the relocation of that building next to Unit 2, for my opinion, would be a much better location because of the reasons I brought up and the buffer from Homedale Road.
Was that buffer from Homedale Road or from Main Street?
No.
The one,
Homedale Road.
it is, no, but I'm asking the one across the street. Is that a? No, I understand where the roads are. What I'm saying is,
It's just that area.
what I'm saying, the buffer I thought was just because of, for the property across Main Street, south of Main Street,
No, it's the master plan says
Master plan.
approximately 500 feet.
from any main road.
But that's where that zone that one property is in. It may be also this piece, but it's not from, I don't believe it's from, but we'll have to have our.
Right, so I'm asking, like, maybe a different buffer from a different road.
Remember, this property only fronts on Main Street.
Okay.
By your other point, you could still make your recommendation later as for other.
When do I do that?
Regardless of the 400 feet.
Yeah, when do I do that?
We'll do it at the end.
Okay, thank you,
Get
that's,
all the comments out.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else have comments?
Somebody changes their mind.
All right, well, Wes, all I ask is, a lot of the stuff hopefully will be vetted, but if you have questions, ask away. Good.
Oh, well, first, Ron, how in the section that's blue, how is anything gonna be any distance from Main Street here?
I would suggest that if that deeded property is gonna go to the town, that the buffer that I'm concerned about is less important because it's gonna be a firehouse, an EMS, it's not gonna be a senior living facility or single-family homes. So I am less concerned about the buffer for a building that's gonna be used part-time.
Every township has its own rules. It does. If
On
they own
page
that and develop it, they're not, it's different.
It says it on page 7, item I, emergency services building located. Oh, I'm sorry. It says it on page 7, item I, under permitted principal uses, emergency services building located in the southwest corner of the parcel on approximately 5 acres will be subdivided from the mother tract, but that's the property, it's also designated to the town. So that's where our emergency vehicles will go and our firehouse, more than likely.
No, I think he's asking why am I not concerned about the buffer on that property, on that deeded property?
I prefer not to have such a big buffer because emergency vehicles need to be in and out. They don't need long driveways.
I mean, the question is, what's the purpose of the buffer originally? Right? Because first of all, remember, it's a guideline, right? It's not a hard and fast rule, it's a guideline. So the point is, like, what's the point of the buffer? Because everywhere else on Main Street, you have houses and everything, literally the El Mercado got whacked by a car because they're so close to the road. So, you're gonna see emergency vehicles on the road. If the point is to maintain the bucolic nature of this town, and that's not gonna really do it.
I would say to put that, what I'm gonna call a satellite building, within the ring road, because it'll be way less visible from the public on Homedale Road. That's my concern.
Yeah, okay, it's fair, that's your concern. Okay,
Okay.
all right, Wes?
3 weeks ago, the Asbury Park Press headline says, Plumstead hit by soaring sewer bills. They owe $32 million over 30 years, and the operating cost for the sewer plant is $2 million a year. They financed a 3-stage treatment plant that's suitable for freshwater discharge, and now they don't have the money to pay for it. Their solution is to build more houses to make up the revenue. On page 12 of section B, so let's look at 12. Section B, it's understood that they're going to utilize the existing wastewater treatment plant. So that paragraph is assuming that the existing 50-year-old, that's a 2-stage plant, has enough capacity to accommodate additional flows. I'm saying even if you built a brand-new 2025 model 2-phase system, it would not be suitable for discharge directly into a Category 1 stream. It cannot remove fecal coliform, PFAS from cookware, and it cannot remove medications that are flushed or excreted in urine. If you open on your phones, people that have phones, Apple Maps, and look at the site, and you'll see a picture of the retention basin. That's the retention basin. It's green. You'll see it dwarfs the actual treatment facility in the area that it covered. So why is it there? Since we just said that a 2-stage sewer plant cannot be directly dumped into the stream, you have to hold the effluent. You can't just dump it. You got to hold it and do something with it. The original DEP permit from 1977, this was called the Sanitary Infiltration Percolation Lagoon. What's supposed to happen is the water's supposed to infiltrate the ground, be filtered by the soil, and then enter the stream. So after 30 years, in 2005, it seems that the natural process stopped. DEP issued a new permit, that's the permit from 2005, and it's a permit to spray 15,000 gallons per day of treated effluent, that's sewer water, from the Prudential Wastewater Treatment Plant located in Homedale Township. So what I just said is that they take that water, and spray it onto the grass. I visited the property on Sunday. So you would think that during the drought that it would be near empty. Instead, it's completely filled with water at near normal depth. You can see from the picture it's gigantic, but there's no signs of life there. Along the shore, there's no deer or raccoon tracks and no fish in the water. It's a dead zone, yet the only water coming from it is an empty office building. I would submit that new residential and medical use would dramatically alter the quality of this stagnant lagoon for the worse. Question, will the mosquitoes and smell affect those that live close by? What is the existing and projected capacity? This lagoon, we already said, lies within the 300-foot stream buffer. Will anything be moved or mitigated? On April 15th, 2024, AVI, that's Avi, and last name is ARGAMAN, from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, wrote regarding this site, quote, I do see a lot of enforcement issues and notices of violation. So if we have problems now with the near zero flow, what practical protection remedy will the DEP provide once the housing is added? What effect has the effluent sprayed on the property had? That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, Bob, since you're more of the, I guess, the wastewater guy, or maybe you have something to respond to that?
Well, you know, without actually getting into the details, and I do not have the particulars of the plant and the property, obviously, when if and when this application will move forward, there'll be substantial plans, details, et cetera, for the amount of effluent that would be generated by any proposed development on the property, how it compares to what was calculated for the existing office building, and what was calculated for when the package plant was actually constructed and permitted by DEP. Everything, again, would have to be reviewed, be reviewed again by DEP to make sure it meets the current requirements. And if the necessary measures to be taken, they would have to be retrofitted, et cetera. Again, this area, we are not in a sewer service area, so the only way to treat any effluent is either via septic systems, conventional septic systems, or these package package treatment plants for the property. So until formal plans are submitted that my office can review, it's just generalized comments, and that's all I can
But
provide
you would
at
agree
this time.
there, by the way, if I look aggravated or annoyed, Wes, I have a toothache, so it's not you. Just keep that in mind. My tooth is killing me, so I'm just a little annoyed at my tooth. Not anyone up here, so I'm smiling now. But those concerns will be addressed if we move forward with this plan to take into account the.
That's
No,
correct.
everything.
I mean, there could be measures baked into any redeveloper agreement, as well as this board will have another opportunity, we'll have the opportunity to review whatever proposal comes forth, whether it's proposal that's shown on the site plan or the condominium plans, or between now and then, and whoever the redeveloper that's assigned, that changes based on their vision and their economics. So that will come before this board for review, and obviously any outside agency, DEP, county, state agencies also.
Wes, do you have any more, or? I can't imagine. Okay. All right, anyone else here on the board have something to add, or comments, or questions? No? All right, well, I guess-
Let me
yeah.
clarify. So Bob, just the last thing you just mentioned. If we do approve this, and assuming that the developer is gonna proceed with this site plan because of the money they've put into it, we have to assume that this is the plan that's gonna come before us. If it is changed in any way, that's a new application totally.
I will defer to the attorneys and to Kendra as to that statement for clarification.
I think Kendra mentioned.
Yeah, so if when they submit a site plan, they prepare a site plan, normally in any other situation, they would submit it straight to the planning board. With a redevelopment plan and the requirements in the redevelopment plan, the township committee is the redevelopment authority, that they first have to submit those plans for what's known as a consistency review with the redevelopment plan, not to confuse it with what you guys are doing tonight. However, if there is something that is substantially inconsistent with the redevelopment plan, a building, is in a different location, there's a violation of setbacks, or there's an issue with the overall coverage, or whatever the case is, something substantial, and in the township committee's standpoint is substantial, yes, the redevelopment plan has to be revised and amended.
Thank you.
And we can agree the relocation of a building would be considered major.
Good.
Okay, just want to be clear on that. Okay.
That's the TC's decision.
Oh, is it?
So we can make any recommendation we want. It's up to the TC to say yea or nay. So no matter what we recommend, they can over.
But
Well, they can
Kendra already
take it under
indicated she would
advisement.
say a moving of a building was
Yeah,
substantial, in her
okay.
opinion. And she's the TC.
Okay, if there's no more questions or comments, I guess at this time, if anyone from the public would like to come up, ask them, go ahead, Ralph, go ahead. Just state your name and address, and we can use this for questions or comments at this time.
Yeah, Ralph Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road.
Just,
I've-
Kendra, can you hear the member from the audience?
Yes,
Okay.
a little bit, yes.
I have two comments. One, a very general one about this application, and then a very specific one about that partly West raised already. Let me- Ah. Technology.
Silly. Okay. Hello? Oh, hold on, I gotta put you on speaker. Where's the speaker? Hello?
I'm here.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
Very sensitive phone. Go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, okay, again, Ralph Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. General comment about this application, and then a very specific one. I'll take the general one first. I first became aware of the fact that the Vonage building was becoming vacant, and this was a candidate for redevelopment a couple of years ago. 15, 20 years ago, I was involved with a subcommittee of the planning board which looked at the zoning for Southern Homedale. And in particular, that led to the rezoning of much of the larger lot, undeveloped areas of Southern Homedale, and what's now the R4H and R4R zones. And in particular, one of the properties that's directly across the street, Main Street, that's in front of this board. There had been litigation even well before that about some of the properties here and whether 4-acre zoning was appropriate or not, and the court said 4-acre is okay. So as we looked at it, we wanted to maintain the bucolic nature of Homedale. We kept to the approximately 4 to 5-acre zoning and did rezone it, but what's now called conservation zoning with a mandatory 65% open space. So as I saw, gee, what's around this property? What is appropriate for this property? My immediate first reaction is do the same thing as we've done across the street and in the other properties, to downzone it. However, that becomes completely uneconomic for any owner. The property itself was assessed at 17 to 20 million. The owner has paid, I think, 17 million, has invested other expenses in it, and you have a building that's not completely usable today. It's clear anywhere around town we've seen Bell Works has struggled, that the office market is kaput, so that the existing office laboratory zoning isn't going to work. My immediate reaction, let's try to go back to the residential thing. Well, if you applied the same criteria as is across the street and in the neighborhood, you could end up with maybe 14 houses, 12, 18, something like that. Even if these were $2 million houses, somebody's got to build them, and you will not end up with enough money to cover the cost of removing or renovating the building and paying off the property. It just doesn't make economic sense. In essence, you've got a property which is already built at a high density compared to neighboring areas. So one has to step back and look at what makes sense. When I saw the proposal from CHA, now here's somebody who really wants to try to do something. Is it ideal? To me, probably not, but they're looking to make use of the property and turn it into something positive for Homedale. It is higher density than other areas around, but there used to be 2,000 people in this building. What they're proposing is like approximately what they said at the meeting in front of the Township Committee, about 450, 350 residents and 100 employees. So that's a significant downzoning, a significant reduction in the needed parking, and hence in the impervious coverage, and I'll come back to that. So the more I looked at it, the more I said, this may not be perfect. It's probably okay and would be a win-win. It creates a positive rateable. The assessments of that property have been going down. So I'm content. I'm not necessarily 100% thrilled. And I don't know that necessarily you will be either. All the questions, such including many of the ones that Wes has been asked, is the package plant functional or not good enough? That all will have to yet be addressed. And some people have been saying, hey, we want to turn it into a park. The mayor and others have said, we don't have the $30 to $40 million that it would take to do that. So one has to, sometimes you have to be willing to compromise. Okay, then that said, and to come to a very specific comment. Wes raised it already, and this goes to Kendra. I raised it in front of the Township Committee last week, and which is why Mike Collins may have called Kendra, about the coverage number. As defined and used in all other Homedale zoning ordinances, coverage means approximately impervious coverage. And there are extensive rules that Homedale has developed as to how you count impervious. The pool doesn't count. Semi-pervious pavers count at 50%. It goes on from there. The numerator of the calculation is all impervious plus things on the property. So that means parking lots, not just structures, sidewalks, everything, and also auxiliary structures. The denominator is the entire area of the site. So I think one needs to clarify that row that you did modify on page 9 to be more consistent with what's in the rest of the development ordinances, because in fine-tuning it, you're going to be referring to those. A couple of wrinkles here is that part of the property is going to be peeled off, separated for the emergency services thing. That will reduce the overall size of the property. The site fronts on both Main Street and Homedale Road, both of which are county roads. I wouldn't be surprised if the county asks for a dedication of some additional road frontage. I don't know if the frontage on Main Street goes to the center or to the pavement. Older ones often go to the center of the street, and they now ask it to include a right-of-way for the county. So that also would reduce the total size of the lot, which is what you got to apply the end of number to. So I think that some of the words that Kendra used is to include only the structures that would be inconsistent with all the rest of Homedale's development orgs and what you normally use in looking at a site plan. So I'd say that should get another look. And whether 15% is the right number or not, that ought to get taken a look at. As the number is probably smaller than what it currently is because of the significant reduction in the amount of parking that's going to be required. So, I mean, this is the level of detail, but if you're going to specify here 15% or whatever number you apply, it needs, I believe it should apply to the entire property in the same way as it does for the rest of the other Homedale ordinances. With that, good luck. This is clearly a complex project, and it's not done by any means. In large measure, to come to one of Kendra's comments, I believe it is basically consistent with the master plan. That you're trying to do what's good for Homedale in environment, in buffering, in all of that. To come back to one comment that Ron made, the 500-foot
Approximately.
applies specifically to the property across the street. The ordinance for those zoning does not include a general 500-foot buffer. It is unique, and the zoning in those conservation stuff is unique to each lot. There is a master plan element explicitly with a layout for each site. There isn't one for this site because that was not included, because at the time that zoning was done, this was an active in-use building. So, but yes, keeping things back, keeping things buffer so as to be bucolic, that's really what's appropriate. And whether it's 400 or 500, if you could keep everything inside the ring road, that would probably be appropriate. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Ralph, I just have one comment. I thought I heard we don't know because the plans aren't here, but I thought I heard at the TC meeting that the open space is actually going to increase because they are getting rid of a lot of the parking lot to build the townhouses. So you are getting more permeable surface area, are you not?
That's my understanding, and that's why.
That's a good thing, no?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's right. One has to go look at the numbers carefully to be able to see just what the right number to put in here is. And the current way it's worded is just completely inconsistent with everything else. I mean, my comment last week was it's showing different numbers for different buildings, but you have not delineated different sites for each of the buildings. You need a meets and bounds, you'd have to subdivide it, et cetera. You really want to deal with what's the total for the entire project and go with that.
Anyone else from the public?
Good evening, Rick Plate, 69 Long Street Road. Until I heard other people talking, I was concerned about something else, but maybe we can have a new motto, Homedale, where the affluent meet the effluent. 15,000 gallons of sewage sprayed on the lawn. Was that every day?
Permit is a daily permit.
Woo! So I hope you'll forward my suggestion for a new town motto to the township committee. I think it'll really explain where we are and who we are. But Mike, the reason I came is we've just been through a drought where we could not water. We were under severe water restrictions. We have no reason to believe that the world has changed in any substantial way, that droughts are not going to continue. And this has to be a use that requires a lot more water than it did as an office building, as a medical facility, and as a residential facility. Where is the water coming from?
Are you asking a question? Where the water's coming from?
That's a question, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion.
I can answer.
Well, if you want to, I'm not going to stop you, Wes.
We get our water from two locations. One is underground aquifers.
Mm-hmm.
Underground aquifers are underground at different levels.
Right.
We're
spraying 15,000 gallons of sewage on that.
Underground
every day.
aquifers have been under pressure for two reasons. One is because we've been drawing too much water from them, and secondly, because as you draw more water, you have saltwater infiltration, and that reduces the viability of the aquifers. 300,000 residents of this area get our groundwater from Swimming River Reservoir. So the stream that's on Prudential, that's the Willow Brook. The Willow Brook is one of the tributaries 2 miles downstream, upstream, from the reservoir. So our water comes from two places. One is a portion of the year comes from underground aquifers. The remainder of the year comes from Swimming River Reservoir. Did that answer your question?
Yes, and do we have water? The next question
Well,
is, do we have water to spare for
that's,
this use?
I mean, look, unless the population of the world stops, there's always going to be more people, and there's a finite amount of water, and they're going to have to get it. I don't know how we can address that. I mean, you know, if they don't build it here, they're going to have to build it somewhere else. You know, I mean, they're going to, if it's like saying, if they develop new housing in Colts Neck or new housing in Lincroft, or new housing, they're gonna get the water from the same sources we get the water from, so. Yeah, so, well, look, we can't control climate. That's not our purview right here, so.
No, but we have to live with it and work with what
Yeah.
we have, and we don't have.
Yeah, but
enough
you can't
water.
accurately predict how much water you're gonna have in 10 years. I mean, I've seen places flourish with water, and I've seen reservoirs dry up, and it had nothing to do with people building housing. You know, that's the planet we live on. But that's not for this committee to discuss. But your point is noted.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Mary Corrigan, 26 Glen Way. I have been designated by our Recreation Committee to read this letter originally sent to the Township Committee in September regarding the Vonage property. Hope it's not too long. The Recreation Advisory Committee would like to formally make a recommendation regarding the future of the property at 23 Main Street, formerly the site of Vonage, located on Homedale Road and Route 520, and its recreational potential. As the site has been determined to be in need of redevelopment, and there is significant demand for additional indoor recreational spaces among all age groups in our community, the committee is recommending that greater consideration be given to the potential viability of repurposing the building or a portion of the building into a recreation facility that would benefit all residents while also generating tax revenue for the township and schools. In contrast to the proposal by CHA, a fully indoor sports complex would preserve the current footprint of the building, minimize the threat to our drinking water, maintain the high standards of low-density residential development in southern Homedale, and be beneficial to all Homedale residents seeking exercise and activity, regardless of weather constraints. The building has enormous potential to meet the needs of our student athletes, as well as swimming pools available to our student athletes. Additional turf fields could be fully indoors, posing little risk in terms of runoff to our watershed, while providing opportunities to continue training regardless of the weather. Indoor pickleball courts would provide opportunities for year-round play. Our senior workout program has reached maximum capacity in the community center, and the attendees have very little room to navigate. An indoor recreation center would provide additional opportunities for our seniors to engage in a wider variety of health and wellness programs. The possibilities are vast and exciting. The Recreation Advisory Committee recommends that the township further investigate the viability of repurposing the building located at 23 Main Street for indoor recreational purposes and consider zoning it accordingly, commercial recreational, and seeking out a developer with an interest in serving all Homedale residents. The property has the potential to not only, I hate this. The property has the potential to not only self-sustaining, but revenue generating. If no developer can be found capable of realizing the vision of a comprehensive indoor recreational facility, the committee asks that the township take steps to incentivize the inclusion of an indoor recreational facility in the overall plans redevelopment of the property building. Should there be any opportunity for our committee to help the township realize this vision, we would be more than happy to offer our individual or collective assistance. Respectfully submitted for your consideration, the Recreation Advisory Committee. Mary Corrigan, Jason Dulo, Andrew Bryceland, Kevin Buchan, Michael Zariga, Jeffrey Mann, Anna Marina Ackerson, Luke Healy, Julie Roth, and Jamie Lowenstein. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, come on up.
Karen Strickland, 26 Hayward Hills. Good evening. I am speaking on behalf of the 25-year-old community group known as CELU, Community for Informed Land Use. The CELU board has the following concerns in regard to the proposed redevelopment plan. Number one, inconsistency with the master plan. The proposed high-density development is not consistent with the charming bucolic character of our town, the New Jersey State Planning Area 5 environmental zoning, or the low-density housing precedent implemented in southern Homedale decades ago in the master plan for the purpose of preserving our watershed. Two, impact on the watershed. The aging wastewater treatment plant on the property was built in 1977, has a history of numerous violations and was designed to handle effluents during office hours, not 24/7 domestic and medical wastewater. One of the permits for the plant allows discharge to the Willowbrook, a fragile Category 1 stream that feeds into the Swimming River Reservoir and directly impacts the drinking water of Monmouth County residents. That is where our water comes from, what filters down into the ground and what goes into the reservoir. And having open space is what protects our water. That's not here in my written. The existing lagoon is only 100 feet from the Willowbrook, and there is a downward slope from the lagoon to the stream. It is less than 2 miles upstream to the Swimming River Reservoir. As there were no Category 1 guidelines at the time the package plant was built, it has been grandfathered in. The redevelopment plan before you now does not include specifications such as the requirement of active carbon filters or the demand for new permits in accordance with current regulations, not just simply the renewal of existing permits to protect the drinking water of Monmouth County residents. Furthermore, it does not address the potential introduction of pharmaceuticals or detergents in the wastewater. I've cut a lot. 1/3 of the reservoir's watershed lies in this area. 1/3 of the reservoir's watershed lies in this area of Homedale, and groundwater recharge is critical. The CLU board suggests that an independent hydrologist have the opportunity to study the plan and make recommendations to the township prior to its finalization. 3, the use of the redevelopment process. The haste with which the proposed redevelopment plan is being pushed through the week before the holidays with people with toothaches, and I have one too, when residents are preoccupied, is cause for concern. Community feedback and input has not been adequately considered. At the very least, the CLU board requests more time for residents to be informed of the proposed plan. The Mayor's Redevelopment Committee met privately and issued a June 11th, 2024 report. Their comments should be taken into consideration when creating this redevelopment plan. They considered 8 options for the property: preserve park as open space, higher education, co-working, paid recreation, data center, low-density single-family residential, luxury active adult, and continuing care community. I cannot stress that this document supports the least attractive of what this community group put together. CLU encourages the planning board to expand the scope of this document to allow for flexibility of uses. 4th, traffic. Consideration should be given to the change of conditions over time on Homedale Road and Route 520. When Vonage was active, the neighboring towns were substantially less developed. Homedale should engage its own traffic study to be done at peak travel times. Everyone can agree that the site is in need of redevelopment and the building should be repurposed. The repurposing of the existing structure does not appear to be the primary focus of the plan before you, but rather a launching pad for new construction, including townhouses and multi-story buildings. 1 paragraph left. CLU urges the planning board to expand this redevelopment document to more than one type of development and consider alternative uses for this site that include input from the community and provide greater benefit, not only to Homedale residents, but for the residents of surrounding towns that depend on our stewardship of the Swimming River Reservoir. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am?
Hello, Victoria Scotta-Lovino, 8 Hidden Hollow Terrace. I had something prepared, but I think Mr. Silberman doesn't care about our open space, so I won't read my letter. I do have a question, though. If you have so many questions at this point, and actually Mr. Silberman said when we pushed this through earlier, and it seems many people already have their made up on which way they're moving, I'd like to understand how you're going to get more detail to get to the critical points that Mr. Fagan actually raised. He's the one that raised so many important points that it seems to be just brushed under, I guess, the watershed. So I'd like to understand why. You all live here as well, perhaps not in that vicinity, so you don't care as much. But the rest of us moved here for the space, and we continually get more and more requests coming in of this huge, large-scale business development that makes little sense for our own communities that we've been preserving. I agree with the two ladies who spoke before. There should be alternatives. It's the first time I don't necessarily agree with Ralph. So I'd like to know what is going to happen. It should not just be brushed through. So how, if you do get more information, what are the options of shutting it down then? If more information comes in that you don't have answers to today, what is the purpose of this meeting?
I think at the beginning, as special counsel indicated, we're here just to make a recommendation. We don't control the speed of the process. We don't control what's in the plan. We can only make a recommendation back to
Understood.
the
And you have
TC.
so many questions still.
Well, they could be put in the form of a recommendation back to the TC. They will then have another public hearing. Whether they will consider whether they adopt them or do something about them is up to them. We don't control that process. We're part of the statutory requirement that we have this hearing to make recommendations. That's it.
Understood. Aren't you appointed by the mayor? As,
Not all of us.
okay.
And I live pretty darn close to Vonage. And I take a little umbrage to some of the things you said. The point is here, we don't have a full set of drawings. A lot of Wes's points are very salient and good points, but until we have more information in front of us, those are very specific to the project. We don't have the input to say that we want to use housing, affordable housing. That's not for us to say. That's for the town council to say and discuss, and then it gets presented in front of us. And then we vet as best as we can once all that information is available to us. And so, I'm not pushing through anything. I'm just going within the guidelines as a planning board and doing what I need to do to get to the next step. And until we get to the next step, I don't know how Wes's points are going to be addressed. I can tell you that nothing's going to be done that's in violation of any DEP regulations. It's not going to be in violation of any town codes or building codes. And I'd be quite surprised that if anyone here or the town approves something that's going to pollute and destroy the drinking water of this town.
Not intentionally, but I think a lot of things
Oh,
do
well,
get
look,
through.
you can,
So,
we can discuss that too at
Okay.
depth, so.
thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. What? One more? Yeah, up. Come on up.
I would just like to say that I actually do live, as does Scott, very close to the Vonage site, so I do have a very keen interest on what goes there. But it's not like Google's not coming there to put their headquarters there. There's been ample time for other uses or applicants to come forward, and as Mr. Blumenthal mentioned, this might not be the best, but we do need to seek ratables in this town because we all care about our taxes. So let's just keep that in mind when we start talking about this. And nothing is going to be decided tonight.
That's right. So, go ahead.
Patrick Trisquita, 56 Line Road. I actually support this project. Yes, I support this project. I've been in Homedale 42 years and really want to know what's going to help Homedale go forward. When I came to Homedale, Prudential was the second largest employer. This was a large site for Prudential. 2,000 to 3,000 people were there every day. In 1992, it was assessed at $50 million for the town and provided millions of dollars into the town revenue that was used for our schools, our police, our municipal services. Okay, fast forward to 2024, and it's a vacant building, clearly in need of redevelopment. It's the purchasers bought it for $17 million a few years ago, and they pay on a vacant building $300 and some thousand dollars. It clearly needs to be redeveloped. Into what? It has been the question for many years. It has been looked at: a sports complex, a college campus, a Google Google, Amazon, fulfillment center, and single-family houses. The best option that's on the table right now is the plan that has been proposed by CHA. What does Homedale get from this? Well, we get quite a lot. I think it's no longer an area in redevelopment. It's no longer a vacant building. It has a very good use, humanitarian use, senior living and senior assisted living. And it provides recreation space more than it has now. And it provides 5 acres deeded to the town for emergency services and fire. So the town is getting land to put in needed services for the southern part of Homedale. So sure, there may be negatives to it that could be addressed from an engineering standpoint, but overall, it seems to be the best that we could do for Homedale for 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, yeah. All right, so, go ahead, Ron.
My one recommendation would be that Unit 4, the 3-story satellite building that's currently, looks like it's taking up the softball field, be moved to within the ring complex, specifically next to Unit 2. It would hide it from both roads, and if it's going to be a 3-story building, then it should be hidden as best as possible. Where it is planned now is the closest to one of the main arteries. So my recommendation would be to move Unit 4 next to Unit 2.
Wes?
Two things. One, to Ralph's point, that the idea that parking lots and so on are not considered
Impervious
coverage.
services, yeah.
So really, that, again, reiterate, that should become more consistent with what our regulations are now, understanding that that 15% may need to be bumped up to cover that coverage.
Yeah.
Secondly, on the permitted uses, principal uses, I can go into detail, but I would suggest that a fitness center might be appropriate to be allowed as a permitted principal uses. We've heard some discussion about recreation. I see on the plans you've got a putting green. What do you got? A private and putting and chipping green. You've got public and private athletic courts. So I don't think a fitness center is that out of line with the permitted uses are on page 7.
That's what I'm looking for.
I think it is in there, unless it's items out under permitted accessory uses in small.
What page?
Eight.
Yeah.
Page 8. Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Tom, anything? TJ? Joyce?
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Okay.
I just feel that this has far less traffic impact than than Vonage did when it was fully employed.
Yeah, I would concur, plus most people there probably are not driving a lot.
Exactly.
So, okay, so what do we do at this point, Marty?
That's it. We should just, I'll defer to Zach. Should we do a motion with those recommendations to forward it back?
Marty, can you use the mic?
I'm sorry. So I'm just deferring back to special counsel. Should we do a motion with those recommendations? I mean, we don't normally do a resolution. I think we just do a letter back to the,
I think that, if that's the way that's typically done, that I think that's perfectly fine.
okay. So then we,
It's all on the record.
well, it's all on the record, so there's nothing else, no resolution.
Okay. All right.
So my approval is contingent on my recommendation, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
There'll be a
you,
letter that the board secretary drafts back saying that this board deems the plan consistent with the master plan, the land use plan, and subject to the 3 recommendations that we put on the record. One
was
from
if they
you.
don't follow the recommendation.
What's that?
Ones if they don't want to follow the recommendation.
They don't have to follow.
Right, that's what I'm being clear. It's
Right,
not-
right, I
yeah,
get
yeah, okay. Okay, well, if that's it, meeting adjourned, right? Oh, we have to close? Make a motion to close? Okay.
Well, first,
That's why I asked you.
professional reports.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This closes this part of it.
Yes, all right, so this part of the hearing is closed. Any professional reports from Kendra or anything from you or Bob? No?
Nothing more for me.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn? Anyone? Motion?
Second.
Okay, motion, meeting adjourned. Have a good holiday, everyone.
Thank you.